Oh, that's what's fun. So let's begin here again.
Yeah.
Hayley, thank you so much for joining us today. The great story before we begin is that I'm still in touch with my 8th grade homeroom teacher at Hoover Drive Junior High, a guy named Ed Welch, and he was going to join us, but he couldn't because he's out of town. He said, tell Hayley that she was my first crush. I said, Ed, that's nice, but she was my first crush too. And it just goes to show how amazing Disney can be, in that when Parent Trap and when Pollyanna, a number of films came out, they kept coming out and kind of either on television or on or re-released in the films. And you know, Hayley Mills has the distinction of being every guy's first movie crush. And that's kind of a cool thing.
It is.
It is. I think it's fantastic. And again, it's great that we have everybody here. And again, what we're going to do, if you go down, you know, Hayley will speak for about 5 minutes, and then we go right to Q&A, and it's very simple. And if you go to the chat function, just put your name into the chat function, and then from that we'll form a queue so that we're not talking over everybody. Just make sure that we're all on mute. I'll if we can, to make sure that nobody that we don't have any ambient sounds. And welcome Hayley Mills.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. Some I can see, some I probably can't see. I'm in London, and it is 7:05 on a Friday. And there's somebody else. Hello. So
hello, how you doing?
This is amazing. It's amazing. This is so space age. So I just want to say what a pleasure and a privilege it is to talk to you all in this extraordinary fashion, and that I'm really amazed and thrilled that people have responded so positively to my book, which took me years and years to finally get down to write. I'd thought about writing it for a very long time and started again and again and thrown endless you know, notebooks and dog-eared looking manuscripts away again. I couldn't get a start. I didn't know where to begin, and it was challenging, but I knew I wanted to write it. And secretly, I had always wanted to write and never thought that I would actually ever do it. And then in 2016, the one and only Howard Green of Disney Studios invited me to have lunch at the studios. And there were a number of two people that I had known back in the day. That was Richard Sherman, the part of a genius team of the Sherman brothers, and his wife, Elizabeth, Arlene Ludwig, who was in publicity then and for many, many years afterwards. And apart from that, a lot of people who work for Disney at the lunch table. And at a certain point in the lunch, Michael Giamo, who is one of the creative team of the phenomenon that is Frozen, turned to me and he said, Hayley, what was Walt like? And I was absolutely gobsmacked, and the table went quiet, and everybody turned to wait to hear what I had to say. At least I thought that's what was happening. And I realized that all these people who worked for Disney didn't know him, had never met him. And I not only did know him, but I loved him. And he was a very, very relevant and important person in my life. And then I was allowed to go up to Walt's office, which had recently been completely put back together again by Rebecca Klein. Brilliant, brilliant idea. Every single little item, little pen, little pot, little notebook that had belonged to Walt. The notes on the notebook, the pictures, the books, everything was exactly as it was the day he walked out of that office. And it was like walking back in time. It was absolutely extraordinary. And then I was given this remarkable access to the archives. And I spent days going through the boxes of all my folders and posters, letters that I'd written to Walt, that Walt had written to me, that Walt had written to my parents to him, etc. In-house memos, telegrams. It was extraordinary treasure trove. And when I came back home and I told my family how just, it had been illuminating, for want of a better word. And they all said, oh, go on, you've got to write. You really, I said, oh, what, I can't. I don't know if I met balls up. I wouldn't do a very good job. And my eldest son, Crispian, said, I will help you. And that suddenly changed everything, because I realized, A, he would, B, he would do a really, really good job, because he's a writer. He's a screenwriter. He's a musician, so he writes lyrics. He had a brilliant band called Kula Shaker, and he wrote 90% of the music. And so we started talking, and we talked, and we got a shape, we got a structure, which I realized was key to writing, as it is perhaps in life. I didn't realize that not only does every book have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, but every chapter had to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so with Crispian encouraging me and egging me on and being pretty tough too, disciplined, I sat down, and as luck would have it, the pandemic hit. Which was extremely fortunate for me, because it meant I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything. And so I was stuck at my kitchen table for 18 months writing. And I felt, a bit of a cheat, and I kept thinking, this is going to be so boring, and who really cares? And it was all such a long time ago anyway, and does anybody remember anyway? And all of those thoughts. And then I realized when I was halfway through it, because I was using my journals, and I was helped tremendously by people in my life who had kept letters. And they gave all my letters back to me. And I had my mother's autobiography, my father's autobiography. I had tremendous amount of source material. And I realized that what I was writing about was what everybody goes through, which is their adolescence. And mine was odd because I was in front of the camera, and because it was peculiar, because I had a certain fame and a different kind of responsibility. But what I was dealing with on a private, personal level was what you deal with, and you, and you, and you, and you, everybody. And of course, somehow the timing was absolutely right. It was suddenly the right time to investigate all that. And so I don't know, luck plays an enormous part in our lives all the time, and often we don't even recognize that it's operating.
Somebody came on there.
Hello.
Okay, let's make sure we're all.
I'm going on and on, Bob. I think you better say, that's very nice, Hayley. Thank you very much.
No, I think this is fun, because what it does is it sets up a great series of Q's and A's. So I think you're doing fantastic. But I'll start off with the first question, and we already have a queue that's building out. I mean, what is it like to be the first screen crush of a series of guys multi-generationally. I mean,
well,
I mean, you should smile and take that in, but
yes.
that's unheard of.
Well, it's an enormous compliment. It's all in absentum, of course. They're not all lining up outside my front door, but unfortunately, but also I'll tell you what it gives me is that when I meet people and when I receive letters and people tell me how much the films that I did when I was a child meant to them at that time, and how much it puts them back, connects them to that time, and often that the films meant a lot and made them happy, or gave them an escape from things that they were going through. That is a wonderful association, because I realize that there are all these people out there and I'm connected with them a very happy time, mostly because the Disney films generally made people happy, and dare I say it, made people glad. If that isn't a terrible old cliche, I don't know what is. But so it's a lovely, lovely association.
Great. Now we'll go on to Tim Farley, then Karen, then Alex. Tim, you're up.
Ms. Mills, thank you so much. This is such a joy and an honor to have an opportunity to chat with you. A couple of things. First off, my wife's a school teacher and she couldn't be on the call today, or else she would be. When she gets sick, when she's home ill, things aren't going well, her go-to movie is The Parent Trap. So she watches that all the time. And so obviously I watch it as well. And there is a question here. And at our dinner parties, it's been generational now. At our dinner parties, after the wine has been drinking and been flowing and everything else, we'll all start singing, "Let's Get Together." Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we can go into that. So my question is about The Parent Trap. What was your relationship like with Maureen O'Hara? She seems like such a wonderful woman.
Well, I can only say that I absolutely adored her. She was 100% real, 100% down to earth. She liked children. We got on really well. We talked a lot and laughed a lot, because she's Irish, so they love talking and they're good at it. And she has a wonderful sense of humor. She was, I should say, astonishingly, astoundingly, eternally, gobsmackingly beautiful. And yet she took it so lightly. She didn't spend hours in front of the mirror. She thought having facials and all that stuff was rubbish. But, you know, she was a natural beauty. She didn't need to do all those things. She gave me wonderful advice about keeping my feet on the ground. She told me when she first arrived in Hollywood, she lived with her mother and stayed with her mother until she got married. You know, she told me about how she had to deal with importunate producers, directors, writers, and anybody else. And that at one time she found it so difficult because she resisted their advances. And she was actually, at one time, they threatened to fire her from movies, you know, because they had the power if she didn't do it, you know, get onto the casting couch. And she said that nothing would have made her do that, and that she was actually at one time seriously considering leaving Hollywood and going back to Ireland, because although she loved acting and it was the most important thing, it wasn't more important than her family. And I think that was something I could identify with. Her family and the reality that she had these amazing sisters. They were all absolutely bonkers, terribly Irish, terribly talkative. You couldn't get a word in edgewise. And, you know, this really did keep her feet on the ground. Does that answer your question?
Oh, more than whatever. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
Karen Hibna, you're up.
Okay, I'll unmute here. So, Hayley, I cannot wait to read this book. It's just going to be a real pleasure to be able to hear the story. I'm dying of curiosity. I know you have granddaughters as well. I have an older granddaughter who's coming up on 11 in December, and I've been collecting stories from people about what that I should tell her to help her kind of make those next steps into her life. So is there something you can remember from when you were on the verge of 10, 11 that you would share, that you share with your granddaughters, that you could share with mine?
Oh my goodness, Karen, I'm sure your experiences and memories are just as valid as mine. It's a very difficult time. And of course, it's a difficult world. It's a different world now. And if it was difficult for us when we were, leaving childhood behind and on the crest of the wave that was going to crash us into adolescence and womanhood, what it would be like today, I don't know. There are so many more challenges, difficult things today. Everyone knows social media absolutely, screws people up if they're not careful. And during the pandemic, we saw the result of that. I think that as I say, my experience was the same but different. And I think what I missed very much was when I started working a lot was contact with my peers. I became I kind of cut off from the girls that I was at school with because frankly, I was asked to leave my boarding school because I was, disruptive because I kept coming and going. And they said, your desk will be much better occupied by somebody who can use it all the time. And I think that if I maintained my friendships with my girlfriends, particularly my girlfriends, but then I went to an all-girls boarding school, so I didn't have a lot of boyfriends. That would have meant a lot. And my education suffered from my career. And I think one of the things actually that helped keep my head above the water was keeping a journal. I kept a journal, not every day, but pretty regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a wonderful way of clearing my head and understanding what I was going through and putting it all down, things you need to talk about, but nobody's interested in hearing. And I think that the journal really was a real lifesaver for me.
It's good practice for becoming a writer later too, isn't it? Because
Yes.
you're putting those words to paper and you get to shape them on your own. So thank you
Yes.
so much. What a lovely response. So
Oh, thank you. Lovely to talk.
Alex Simon, you're up.
Hi, Hayley. I'm Alex. It's nice to virtually meet you.
Hi. Yes, hi.
I also have to start by saying I'm also a member of Club Hayley. You are that very special woman who made me realize at a certain age that I definitely like girls. So thank you for that.
That's a great compliment. Thank you.
My other question is, the other Disney star that I grew up really being a huge fan of, who I actually met when I was very small, he was my first celebrity meet, was Tommy Kirk. And he just died a few days ago. And I know you never worked together directly, but he worked with your dad in Swiss Family Robinson, and you were at the studio at the same time. So did you know him, and do you have any memories you can share with us?
Oh, not anything extremely concrete, because he was that much older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to school on the lot in the little red schoolhouse, I don't remember Tommy Kirk being in there.
Mhm.
And at Funicello and the Musketeers were in there, and Moochie, Kevin Corcoran was in there. But I did spend some time with him when we were on the island of Tobago, when they were doing Swiss Family Robinson. And he was just a really sweet guy, just a really nice young guy, and relaxed and fun, and no kind of, chip on his shoulder, or, no vibes. He was very easy to talk to. Didn't you find that?
Yeah, I mean, my memories of him are vague because I was about 4 when I met him. But yeah, my parents did a play with him, and they said that he was just extremely normal. Of course, his career would have been over by then. This would have been the early 1970s. After, unfortunately, all that scandal, which wouldn't be a scandal today. His sexual orientation and getting busted for marijuana, nobody would care these days.
No.
Looking back, it's so silly that could ruin someone's career. But they said that he was just a very gentle spirit, and that also came through always in his work, I think, as well.
That's true. And the first time a gentle spirit, I think, is a very good description. The first time I remember seeing him was in Old Yeller.
Oh, yeah.
And Old Yeller, oh my God, I don't think I've ever cried so much as I cried in Old Yeller.
I haven't been able to watch that movie again since I first saw it as a little kid, honestly. It was so traumatic, the ending,
I don't think, but I remember it vividly. I can remember so much of it. I saw it when I was 15 and in the cinema, and I actually had to be led out. I was such a mess. And he was a lovely actor, and I'm sad to hear that he's gone to a better place. I didn't know that.
Oh, okay, yeah. It happened, I think, 4 days ago.
Yeah, a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Stephanie, you're up.
Hi, it's such an honor to talk to you. I'm such a huge fan, so I'm excited to be here. Hi, I was wondering.
Words behind you.
It's this crazy wallpaper.
It's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know I needed a Zoom background when I got this wallpaper. So I'm wondering, in writing your book and coming across all these wonderful memories, and kind of reintroducing yourself to yourself, is there a particular memory that really delighted you, that you stumbled across during this process?
Well, the whole thing was a wonderful sort of journey of discovery, quite honestly. It was such a wonderful opportunity to go back and relive those days, which I'm sure you have times in your life, and you would love to be able to project yourself back into them again as they absolutely were. I would love to be able to go back and walk into my parents' old house and see them sitting under the catalpa tree, and when your parents die, you lose that world completely that you inhabited with them, don't you? So writing this book was marvelous. It's sort of like stepping through the looking glass again, and remembering those times. I think particularly when I first arrived in Hollywood, it was such an incredible contrast to England at that time. England in 1960 was actually still kind of struggling through the effects, the aftermath of the Second World War. There wasn't much color in the world. The people's clothes were kind of drab. The 60s hadn't really kicked in properly yet. And to suddenly find myself in Hollywood was the whole of California was like Disneyland, actually, for me. and being taken to Disneyland by Walt Disney and going on all the rides with Walt Disney and staying in Disneyland in one of those wonderful hotels, and being escorted around the place by him and taken to the front of the line, which was so wonderful and so embarrassing. All those poor people standing in the sweltering sun. And there's one story which I mention in the book, which is absolutely true. We'd gone round the back of the Matterhorn. I think it's called the bobsleigh ride or something like that now. We go round the back. The line was snaking out into the sun. It was endless. It was 2 hours probably to get in. And as we let ourselves in, Walt opened the gate. We were in the little back garden. And a Disney employee saw us coming in, rather kind of shamefacedly, and came rushing up and said, here, you can't come in here. Who do you think you are, Walt Disney? And Walt, there was a terrible pause, and we all thought, oh God, he's going to get the sack. And Walt turned round and he looked at him with his sweet smile and he said, well, as a matter of fact, I am. And this poor man, he'd got all this white zinc all over his nose, and he went, oh my God. And he spread the white zinc all over his face and fell into the geraniums. That was a good moment.
Well, but before we go on to Michael, I worked at Disneyland at one point too.
What were you doing?
I was because I was going to college in Southern California for a year, and because there was an advertisement to say, come work at Disneyland, I did. And what was fascinating about it is I worked in Fantasyland in one of the kiosks. I took hundreds of pictures of people who had, would just happen to be, will you please take a photo with my camera? And I was just one of those guys who sold stuff. But what was astonishing is how well the Disney team pulled it off. And you don't realize it because you walk not onto a park, you walk onto a stage. We all went to Disney University. And on top of that, you realize the cognitive dissonance of it all when you're having lunch, and then there is a character with his head off, sitting with his head on the table as he's eating his lunch. And that point, that just blows your mind. But walk me through, I mean, what my take of the, I had to cut my hair, I had to do a lot of things. It was some time ago. But walk me through how it was working with the Disney organization. They seem to bring a white glove touch to everything.
Well, it was a very organized studio. It was very well run. It wasn't very large. I think this was one of the good things about it. And it was as clean as a whistle. You could have eaten your sandwiches off the sidewalk. I think that the thing that really made it stand out for me, and I realized, particularly when I went back there many years later to work after Walt had died, was that Walt was the boss. It was his studio, and he was very involved in absolutely every aspect of the studio, every department. He knew what the pen and ink girls did. He knew what the animators did. He knew what the carpenters did. He knew what the actors did. He knew what was going on with the camera and the crew, everything. And he wasn't remote. He wasn't one of those bosses that you never saw, that were kind of, like a little scary because you never saw them and they were so powerful and you were in awe of them. He was down wandering across the lot. He knew everybody's names. Hi, Joe. Hi, John. Hi, Bob. How you doing? And people loved him. They respected him. They didn't give him any bullshit because he had very, very, very high standards, and people knew that if they didn't live up to the standards, they would get the sack. And they did. And I know that he was tough, and I know there's all kinds of stories about, Walt being difficult and all kinds of things. I can only tell you about my own personal experience. And that was wholly, wholly good. The only quibble I absolutely have is I could have done with a bit more money.
And with that, we go to Michael Leising. You're up. Michael, then we have, I forget who Lunch 01 is. She's next. And then Mike
Lisa,
Russo.
sorry,
Okay,
Lisa.
Lisa, got it.
Lunch, I'm Lisa. Put lunch instead.
Okay, so we'll go with Michael, Lisa, then Mike. Mike Leising.
Well, this is Michael. I actually don't have a question. I'm just enjoying this.
Oh,
so
okay.
keep going, please.
Then Lisa, you're up. Lunch 01, you're up.
Okay. Hi, Ms. Mills. How are you? I'm a big fan, and I actually interview celebrity people I've written for Variety and Hollywood Reporter, and I'm a huge fan of Disney and Disneyland. I grew up near Disneyland, and I used to write for Disney News. So I interviewed a lot of people to do with Disney, like the Matterhorn climbers, and I became friends with Mark Davis, one of the last 9 old men. And we had lunch together often with him and his wife, Ellis. And I wanted to ask you a question, like, having not read the book, but I read up on you and everything, and I loved your films. Sorry, I'm a big fan. I wanted to ask you, what was the toughest time or toughest challenge you faced, and how did you overcome that?
I think the without doubt the most difficult thing for me was when I began to lose my confidence, and I was terribly shy, which seems a bit silly really, but I was very, very shy and struggled socially. It was easier when I was in front of the camera because I knew exactly what I was supposed to do, and that was fine. But you know, in just normally in the studios and socially, and it was torture. And I think it was because, well, adolescence makes you very self-conscious, and you're trying to work out who you are and what you think and what you believe, and you ask yourself all those questions you never asked yourself before, like, what am I doing? And am I any good at it? And, you know, do people like me, or are they pretending to like me? Who am I? Everything just falls apart. And that was agony. It was agony. And so that was a battle, and it wasn't something I could talk to people about. And in those days, not many people had therapists. And in fact, if anybody went to a therapist, not so much maybe in America, but certainly in England, and the kind of people that I knew, they would rather look at you rather pityingly, you know, like, oh dear, poor girl. You know, I mean, they didn't see the value of it. They saw it as a terrible lack of yours. So that would have been enormously helpful if I had had therapy, but I didn't.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so the next question goes to Janice Karpinski, then Randy Agnes, then then Mike Russo, then Karen Bartenstein. So Janice, you're up. Janice stepped away for a second, so we'll come back to Janice. Randy Agnes, you're up.
I'm here. I'm here.
Janice is back. Okay.
I don't want to miss my chance, Hayley. Thank you very much for doing this. Bob McBarton puts the most amazing conversations together, and I'm so grateful for that and for you being here today.
Janice.
Yes.
Janice, you are the invisible woman.
I don't know
Are
why.
you sitting in this? Are you sitting in this lovely chair, or are you hiding behind it?
No, oh, wait a minute. It's turned around. I have to reverse the camera. Here I
There
am
you go.
Oh, there you are.
on the chair.
Right there.
I saw, I'm sure many of the participants saw Pollyanna. I loved Pollyanna. I loved you in Pollyanna, and I tried my best to become you from Pollyanna. I loved Maureen O'Hara. I loved the entire setting. I wanted to be there. I wanted to live that life. And over the course of time, I collected the most beautiful hats. And still to this day, if I have a really bad day, I just put one of them on and I become a participant in that movie again. I feel wonderful. So thank you very much for that, because you were, and you will endure forever in many of the roles. I do have another question though. What was it like to work with Brian Keith?
It was great. It was great. He was really lovely man, and a very patient man working with kids. He was a sweet guy. He was just like you imagine he would be. He was just like that. He was just like the dad in The Parent Trap, and he had a sort of self-depreciating thing about him. He had a lovely sense of humor. And in the film, of course, he's surrounded by all these scheming women, including scheming children. And he handled all that so very well. I think his sense of humor really was was my favorite thing about him. And of course, it's a saving grace for us all, isn't it? However tough, however difficult life is, if you can find something to laugh about, it does ease it a lot. You would be very, very happy if you met him, Janice. He wouldn't disappoint you, is what I'm
100% sure of that. And thank you very much for that, because anything that you were in, I'm sure he rose to the occasion because it was a perfect match. And it was clear on the screen.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. That's really lovely. Thank you so much. You look beautiful, Janice.
Thank you. As are you. Thank you.
And with that, Randy Agnes, you're up. You're on mute. Randy, you're on mute. Hold on, he's still on mute. There he is.
How's that? That better?
Perfect.
Okay,
Oh, hello.
Hi, Hayley. How you doing?
It's fine. It's you again.
Yeah, I'm revisiting.
You are, yes.
So a little bit about me. I'm a winemaker in Finger Lakes, and just wondering if you like Riesling, but that's not my question. I really want to know how difficult is it to actually write a book? I'm in the process of writing a children's book.
Right.
And it's about someone I know and their childhood actually. And I just wondering, how did you get started? Now I'm fairly long away from the start, but I still need, I think, some finishing points. And I was wondering if you have any ideas there.
Oh, goodness me. It took me years to finally write this book, Randy. My goodness, I wish I could wave a magic wand for you. You know what helped me tremendously, because I was helped very, very much by my son, Crispian. He showed me the importance of having a structure, the structure of the book. And I know that not everybody needs to write like this, but because I was writing a memoir, a structure was terribly important. Otherwise, I went wandering off into the woods and would get lost with my stories and never be seen again. I think he gave me some wonderful tips which I'm sure you know about, and he called them bullet points. He said, every time you think of something that's interesting or funny or worth remembering, write it on a card and have them all together. And then what I did was put them all over the ground. And I thought, yes, that goes there, that goes there. Oh no, that's boring. That you know, you sort through them like that. And then slowly a trajectory emerged, a narrative, which you would have anyway, because you're writing a story, an imaginary, you're writing fiction, right?
No, it's actually it's almost like what you're talking about. It's going to be like diary passages of a childhood.
Oh, I see how that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I think what helped me very much was Crispian said, you've got to have an idea in your head of a narrative. It's got to have, you know, it has to basically build to a certain point, and there has to be a kind of anticipation. There has to be challenge. And the things that challenge you at some point have to be resolved. All those things that I would never have thought about if you hadn't told me. But your experience is your experience, and I am complete novice and still completely bowled over by the fact that I've got a book at all. I keep looking at it and think, I can't believe, I can't believe this has happened.
Well, it's wonderful. You've obviously had a wonderful life so far, and good luck for all the things that you go forward and your chance to travel around and visit with people at book signings, if that's what your goal is. But I've been a big fan for all my life. I'm, just approaching 60. So I know, back in the days with the early Disney, it was, that was wonderful. I mean, it was movies that you could go to as a family and all enjoy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, Disney has produced some wonderful movies, and, his heart was very much in the right place about everything that he did, everything he created. And I did ask him once when I was about 15, I said, your films are all so positive and they all have a message of some sort. What do you think the message of your films is really? And he looked at me very carefully and he said, I want to show people the best in themselves.
Right.
And when you think about it, that's what he does, those movies, mostly. You see human beings struggling and you see human beings failing, but you see human beings being splendid too, because they face challenges that everyone does. And, they survive somehow. They find something to be glad about. Oh God, I promise you, I'm not going to quote Pollyanna at everybody all the time. Oh dear.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Father Mike Russo, Karen Bartenstein, Alex Simon. Mike, you're up.
Hello there.
Hi, Mike.
Well, Miss Mills, I think there is a young actress somewhere in England or around the world who is going to be playing you in the screenplay of this book of yours. It's so compelling. You and your son are ready to write the screenplay from the autobiography.
Oh my God. Well, Crispian would definitely do that. He's a screenwriter.
May I ask you one question, particularly about the legacy of your family? The very first film that really caught my attention as a young boy was Great Expectations with the great John Mills. It was just an extraordinary experience then, and it still remains one of my favorite David Lean movies with Alec Guinness. What is it like growing up in a family that a stage family, a film family with such a legacy of great work?
Well, Mike, it makes you very proud. and it makes you feel you have to live up to, you know, pretty high standards. And but also it's, you know, my father was a really wonderful example of frankly how to be a professional actor. He was very disciplined and professional, and you know, when I was born, my father was already a big star in Britain, and he was a big star all his life. He died at the age of 97. And the last film he did, he was 95, playing an old man at a party in a film by Stephen Fry. And the old man, he's sniffing what he thinks is snuff, but it actually turns out to be cocaine. And he gave the most wonderful reaction. And I hasten to add, he'd never actually sniffed cocaine. So he, you know, it was acting. So if you grow up, what I was going to say, I think, is, so if you grow up in a family of actors, that's what you know. So, you know, I didn't, when I started acting, I was really just going into the family business.
And what were your conversations like over the dinner table about your films and your dad's films, the legacy that's there? Are there films that you would talk about, and would he give you any pointers as to how you might be better at what you were doing in that craft?
Well, he would say, don't be boring. He would, you know, Mike, we didn't really talk about that. He loved to talk about the business. He loved to talk about actors. He loved to talk about what everybody else was doing. This would drive my mother mad because she was a writer. And she would say, oh God, all you ever talk about are bloody actors. Why don't we talk about writers and writing and ideas and all that? So there was a bit of a conflict there. And, you know, the best advice he gave to me really is, if you believe what you're doing, other people will believe it too.
Well, now you are the best of both mother and father as an actor and as a writer. Thank you.
Oh, what a lovely thing to say. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, Karen Bartenstein, my sister, you're up, dear. You're on mute, honey. There you go. She's trying to get, there you go. Go for it. Go, honey. We can't hear you. Karen, we can't hear you right now. Well, unfortunately, Karen, I don't know if you can hear her. We can't hear you. So we'll just move on. Sally, we'll move on to Alex. Alex Simon, you're up.
Yeah, it's another Alex. I already have my turn.
Oh, okay. Then, oh no, you can go ask Stephen Smith, you're up.
Well, thank you. And can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Great. Haley, you probably don't remember me, but I had the great privilege of producing your A&E biography profile for American television in 1999. And I had a wonderful time with you. I got to interview your father and family, and that was one of the great joys of my career. So thank you for that. And I wanted to add, and you were so candid with us about your life and shared so much with us. I know you found many things since 1999 when we produced that program. And I've listened to several of your interviews. I loved your podcast with my friend Leonard Maltin recently. And I was just curious, what, since we when we worked together about 20 years ago, what were the things that you discovered that really surprised you most about your life that you've been able to incorporate in the book?
Well, I think the fact that I could write it at all has astonished me. And you know, it's a wonderful thing to be able to go back, relive it, and look at it again. And actually, I think what it's done for me is it's closed the gap between that child and the adult. And there was a disconnect for quite a long time because I struggled with all these things that adolescents do, you know, insecurity and lack of self-worth and all that, which is awful. And everybody goes through that. But also there was also this nagging feeling that the whole thing was a mistake. It should have been my sister who had this wonderful luck, this wonderful, you know, the moving finger stopped and it stopped at me. And it was like, no, it should be Juliet. It should be my father. Why me? You know, I was just messing around, you know, with my pony on the farm. And it took me a long time to accept that it was me. It came to me, therefore, not to honor it would be a very bad thing. So this has really connected me with myself in a way that I didn't expect to happen. And I feel more rounded, more complete as a person, because I feel I've really, for the first time in my life, taken ownership of it. You know, golly, I hope it doesn't take most people that long.
It takes a lot of us a long time, but may I share something about, I don't think this is too personal, but when we finished the program, you sent us a lovely letter, and everyone on my team, including me, just adored you. We loved the time we got to spend with you and those around you, and the show aired, and you sent us a very nice letter, and it included, and I will paraphrase a sentence in which you said, "It alerted me to many things about myself that I must change in terms of how I speak," or something. And I remember thinking you were very, I think, critical of yourself. And we were all just saying, no, you're the most wonderful person to be around. You're so delightful. And in watching your recent interviews in connection with this book, it seems to me that you're not being as hard on yourself. That makes me so happy, because you've always been such a source of joy for people and such a fulfilling person. And I mention this because of what you just said about the YB and the moving finger, and to say you absolutely deserved it. I think everyone here, of course, would agree. And there's a reason that you're loved, and a reason that we all were so eager to be with you today, and that I was so grateful for the experience we had. So thank you for that, Hayley.
Gosh, Stephen, that's just absolutely marvelous. Thank you so much for everything you said. I wish I'd recorded it so I could listen to it all over again.
Well, someone will be happy. I'll be happy to say that anytime you need to hear it, but you deserve it, and you are loved.
Oh, bless you. Bless your heart. That's so sweet. I really appreciate it. Bless you.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you.
And then the next person is listed as iPad. I don't know who she is. There you go.
Sorry, it's me, Linda.
Linda, okay, you're up.
Okay. Miss Hayley, thank you so much for doing this. I've been a fan. And going back to your family, my question is, because you mentioned your sister Juliet, and you had such a big acting family, and any of us who have siblings, we know there's competitive and sibling rivalry that goes on. Did your family have that? Did you and your siblings have that growing up?
No, we really didn't, you know. We really didn't. I was always her acolyte. I adored her from the moment I clapped eyes on her. She's 4.5 years older than me, so everything she did in my eyes was absolutely perfect. And my brother Jonathan is 3 years younger than me, I think he got a pretty raw deal because Juliet and I were very close together because I was always hanging around her, and Johnny was kind of left out a bit because he was a boy and he wanted to do different things most of the time. So when Juliet and I weren't together and Johnny and I were together, we fought all the time. I mean, we loved each other, but we fought all the time. It wasn't competitive, it's just normal fighting. And she is a very special person. And she started acting before I did. She was 3 months old when she was in her first movie, a movie called In Which We Serve, made by Noel Coward. And they needed a baby in the basket, in the pram, in the cot, I mean. And Noel, they were filming, and one day Noel said, "Oh, we need a baby, we need a baby." And my mother said, "Oh, I've got a baby." So he said, "Go get it." She rushed home and got the baby and stuck the baby in the cot. It was fine. This was her first appearance, and it was a memorable appearance. And then she did all kinds of other things and always wanted to be an actor. And when I made my first movie, Tiger Bay, with my father and this German film star, Horst Buchholz, the director was J. Lee Thompson. It was a beautiful little movie, and it was very, very well received. And I got very good notices, ridiculously good notices. And I was, you know, I didn't know how my father would feel, and I didn't know how, and I worried how my sister would feel. But my sister went to see Tiger Bay 5 times. And each time she went, she cried more. And she came to me afterwards and said, I have to tell you that I've seen Tiger Bay 5 times. I absolutely loved it, and I absolutely loved you in it. And if I hadn't loved it and I hadn't loved you in it, I would have been very jealous. But I'm not now because it's so good. And how can you not love devotedly somebody like that for the rest of your life? So in answer to your question, and you seem to have disappeared, dear lady, whose name was iPad. But I reckon you could probably still hear me, yes?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, there she's back. There she's back.
Sorry. It's Linda, by the way, but I'll take
Linda. Linda, you suddenly became somebody else. So that was the only incident that Juliet handled for her years with great wisdom. I was 12, she was 17, and she handled that beautifully.
Thank you.
And now we go on to Ronnie. Ronnie, you're up.
Okay, I'm cheating. I've got 4 questions. Okay, but I will ask them all at once.
Okay.
And my initial question was going to be, what was the transition for you like from being a child star into adulthood, when your career probably shifted somewhat? And you also had mentioned, and I was going to sort of dovetail that with something you'd said about loss of confidence, and I was wondering if that coincided with the loss of confidence that you mentioned. That's one question. The second thing is, I just have to follow up on what you said about money, when you said Walt Disney could have paid you more money, because I know there are wonderful stories about Walt Disney and others not so nice stories about him. So I am curious about that. My third question is, with all of this Me Too thing erupting in Hollywood, I'm wondering if you ever were subjected to any of that sexual harassment. And my last question, which is the really hard one, is my sister, who is on this call. Carol, can you wave or do something? There's my sister on the call. The two of us
I got a question too, yeah.
for the last several years have gone to London every January or early February until the pandemic, and we will be resuming afterwards. We go for a week or 10 days and just completely indulge in show after show after show. And would you like to meet us for dinner while we're there next time?
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, it sounds like an irresistible invitation.
Yeah, we're very funny. You can take my word for it.
Yeah. Well, right. Gosh, now short-term memory loss going on here. But yes, it does seem terribly boring to go banging on about loss of confidence and all that. It happened, I think, for lots of reasons. Adolescence, that's what happens. You reassess who you are. You're becoming somebody else and you don't know who that is. You don't like the body you're in, and it doesn't add up to other people's, and you look at them and think they're so beautiful, and you're always comparing yourself to other people. And also it had something to do, quite a lot to do actually, with the fact that my fame was growing extraordinarily, and I less and less and less identified with the famous person that was on fan magazine covers, and that person who was having feuds with actresses I'd never met, and the person who was having love affairs with actors that I longed to have a love affair with but didn't know. And all these witty, wonderful things I'm supposed to have said. And who is this person? It was somebody else. It was weird because The Parent Trap was a big success, that film, and it was twins. And I felt like there was me, and then there was this identical other me that was somebody quite else. And it was excruciating actually, and went on for far too long. What was the next part? Oh, money.
How did you? Well, let me just do one follow-up question on that. How did you eventually work your way through that? Really identity crisis or the crisis of confidence.
I think time is really the great thing. Time, endless dieting, hideous diets, grass, throwing up, boiled eggs, white wine, anything I could think of that would satisfy my appetite, but not, put on weight. I was bulimic for years, actually. And really, when I first married, I thought this has sorted it all out. And then I had my first son, Crispian, who helped me with the book. And then I had another son, Jason. And my beautiful, beautiful boys really were when I began to take charge of my life. So it motherhood, I suppose, really, that's the answer to that. And trying not to look in the mirror too much.
Wow.
Okay, Allison.
And as far as the money goes, there is a great danger in doing things like this when you're meeting all these very friendly, sweet, and very generous people, as are on this program, is that one can get a bit, say something and you think, oh God, I shouldn't probably have said that. Now, the thing about money is that it was common knowledge and happened to everybody that you did not get residuals if you worked for Disney. And so that was a bit of a shame, but also the contract was very generous, but it didn't allow me to renegotiate. So that would, but you know, I lost all my money eventually anyway, so it would have just been given to Her Majesty's Inland Revenue Service. So you know, it was neither here nor there at the end.
Well, we will pay for dinner.
All right.
Allison,
And you can
Allison,
also
you're up.
You might get a lot of people wanting to crash that dinner. So Hayley, it's a great honor to meet you. We're all, of course, fans. As a child, The Parent Trap was special to me because I was an only child. And it was a great, wonderful fantasy to have a sister appear. And I wished that would happen to me. And through the wonderful technology of DNA I discovered just a few years ago, I do indeed have some half siblings I didn't know about. So you never know.
Marvelous.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. You must be so thrilled to be a part of the Disney tradition. So many of us that grew up in Southern California got to go to Disneyland often, and what a privilege then to take our children. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was there with my grandchildren. You know, it's magical to see it all through your eyes again. So what a wonderful life you've had. My question is probably one you've gotten asked before, but I just read recently that you had lost your Academy Award. And I was curious if they replace those when you lose them. And then I also wanted to know what, if anything, was your role in the remake of The Parent Trap?
My statuette disappeared. I can only assume it was stolen. When I came back from making a television series in Hollywood, I was doing a series called Good Morning, Miss Bliss, which became something called Saved by the Bell, which was a huge success, but I wasn't in that. When I came back from filming Good Morning, Miss Bliss, my little Oscar had disappeared, and I never discovered what happened to it. The thing is, it wasn't that big, you see. It was probably about 7 inches high and very delicate and quite easy to slip into a deep pocket. And I think, I'm afraid that that's what happened. What else did you say?
However, I'm going to jump in for a second, only to correct one thing, because Sid Ganis used to head the Academy, is an old friend of ours, Sid and Nancy. And the rules are this: if you are still alive and you lose or break an Academy Award, one will be replaced for you. I will reach out to Sid Ganis today if you'd like.
Yes.
Done.
I would absolutely love it.
Done.
Bob.
I mean, and we know this because Jeremy Larner, who's another friend of ours, won an Academy Award for a movie called The Candidate. And when they were passing it around one night, a little too much wine was spilled. It broke, shattered. He got a replacement. So when we're done, I'll need to just to speak with you afterwards. But I'll start the process, and if we can, fantastic. If we can't, oh well. But at least we'll have a shot at it.
It's worth a try. Let me tell you, I have tried, of course, and I have been told that after they gave me my statuette, they broke the mold. They don't make them anymore. After mine, children were given a full-sized one. So I tell them, please tell the Academy, I'd be very happy with a full-sized one, if that's all there is.
Okay, I will. Okay, we'll talk about this when we're done, and at least we'll explore it and see what we can do. And I'm sorry. And let's see who's next here. Carol Richards is next.
Okay, hi. I forgot what my question was, but I wanted to say that one of my claims to fame when I was a child was that I could do a very good imitation of you, and was asked to sing the flip side of Let's Get Together, the Cobbler Cobbler song, and I had to sing that a lot of times to my girlfriends, and they said I sounded just like you. And if anybody had told me when I was a child that I would have an opportunity to talk to you, I would not have ever dreamed that this was possible. Because of course, every boy had a crush on you and every girl wanted to be you. But I was just going to ask you if you had seen the remake of the movie and what you thought of it.
I have, of course, I have seen it. I have seen it, and I enjoyed it. It was a very odd experience. It made me feel a bit like Rip Van Winkle, because it is so similar, except for being very different. Whereas, you know, the parents are very different. Dennis Quaid, I believe, and Amanda Richardson, Natasha Richardson, were lovely, but very different kind of parents. And I thought that Lindsay Lohan was really, really, really good. And the split screen photography by that time was so brilliant that you just simply couldn't see the seat, you couldn't see the joins. And, you know, in the original version, it was one of the first films that used that kind of technology. And it's, you know, it's limiting. It was limiting. There always had to be a line between the two of us. Either
I know that was interesting. You said that you talked about that in your book, and that you mentioned your double. So that was something I was always curious about. So I was glad you mentioned that in your book.
Yes, that's right. Susan Henning, well, Worthington, her name is now, actually. And it was very clever the way they used the two of us and over her shoulder. And the poor girl, she had to wear this rubber replica of my nose all day, just in case she happened to turn, you know, and a little bit of her nose was showing. And she was such a good sport about the whole thing, because she was also an actress, but it was always the back of her head. And I did get a bit of instant karma, though, in the scene, the party scene, when the boys came and we were doing the dance, and the back of my dress is cut out. And then the two girls fight. And I forget which one I was at the time, but I had the great fun of putting a custard pie into Susie's face, completely forgetting she had to do the same thing to me. So that instant karma, boom, custard pie into your face.
and before we go to the next question, as I recall, the femme fatale in the first movie played the mother of the femme fatale in the remake.
Oh, that's right.
That
Joanna
was the
Barr.
aha move. Like, oh my God.
Yes, that's clever. Yeah.
And we go to Julie's up next. We have a few more, and we'll be wrapping it up soon. So Julie.
Okay.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, Julie.
Very excited to read the book. I was curious what your favorite role was to play, you know, at any of the films, but your favorite character to embody.
I don't know. I don't really know if I've really got a favorite. You know, the first movie I ever did was called Tiger Bay, and I played a real little tomboy in that movie. And that was my first experience acting in front of the camera. And it was a very, very good, happy experience. And it propelled me happily into all my Disney films, and which were also good experiences. I had wonderful directors and excellent scripts. And I think as far as the pleasure of inhabiting another character, it's hard to choose. I loved playing Pollyanna. I loved being that character. But I think probably The Parent Trap, because there were two of them. So I got two. Yeah, I think probably The Parent Trap. And it's one of the ones I look at and I think, well, I'd love to do that again and do it better. Yeah. Yeah. Did you like The Parent Trap?
Oh, I loved it. My mom wouldn't let us watch very much growing up, but anything with you in it, we were allowed to view. So my sister and I had that film memorized.
Right. Well, there you go. That's good. That's why Walt was so, you know, he knew he was on solid ground when he prevented me from doing different sorts of films. He said, because audiences expect to be able to see films with, what's her name in them. So I couldn't do other films until my contract with Disney was over.
Well, I loved The Trouble with Angels too. That was my other.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
And
thank you.
And
Okay.
we got time for just a few more questions. Cindy DeHoog, you're up. We might have lost Sydney there.
Your family is growing, Bob.
It is. They are. My wife and daughter.
Sorry, I was on mute, and
there you go. Cindy, you're up.
I think like everybody else here, I'm a huge fan of yours, and I have been since I was very young. Actually, I thought we were the same age, but you were actually a little bit older. In fact, I was one of the people that wanted Hayley as my name. I wanted to change my name to Hayley until I saw Moon Spinners, and then I thought Nikki was the best name for a girl. So I guess I must be attracted to the boys' names. I didn't even know Hayley was a boy's name until your book came out, actually. Because of my lifestyle, I've already got your book on tape, and I'm delighted to have you in my ears for the whole book. I feel like we're just visiting. It's just such a great experience. I thank you for narrating your own book, because yes, that totally makes it. I'm I'm delighted by the English accent, and I will say I was surprised that the voice I remember as a child is the same voice we hear today. Your age does not come through in your voice at all. So bravo to you for that. What shocked me most, and I will say I'm not quite through the book yet, but I will say that it's like everybody else mentioned, is the insecurity that you had. You have this amazing life of fame and fortune with the famous parents and people popping in your life at dinner all the time, that you would be insecure to the extent that you were, was shocking. And I had to say, is it because from a very young age, do you think you were, even though the roles that you played, you identified with at least a piece of, you were still in the Hollywood mode of so much of what you're living is not real, right? And I didn't know if you felt like, you mentioned at one point you thought they weren't even loading the camera with film because your performance was so bad, they were just letting you go through as a courtesy. And I was like, that's crazy. And you have such love and admiration from everybody around. I was just, why do you think that? Do you think that had something to do with it? That so much of the life was not real because of you were acting, you were pretending to be someone else?
Well, we're always our harshest critics, aren't we? We all are. Mm-hmm. And it's, at a certain time, I felt it difficult to live up to expectations. I knew who I was inside, more or less. And I just felt people expected me to be more, to be better, to be exceptional. And I wasn't. I was just ordinary. And I was also very aware. I became very aware as far as, I didn't actually live in Hollywood, Cindy. I would go and work, and we'd rent a house and we'd be there for 5 months or whatever it was. And then I would go back to England and carry on with school or whatever, or make another movie in England. So the unreality of it wasn't like if I had been with, like Judy Garland, if I'd been like Judy, that was, I think, one of the problems for her, was a terrible unreality. But the other thing too was I became aware that, as an actor, I wanted to learn, I wanted to grow, I wanted to be better. And I began to feel that the roles that I was given didn't give me that opportunity. I wanted to expand myself. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know what I could do. I wanted to know what I could do. And I felt that I was repeating myself. And then I felt that, you know what it's like when you do something and people say it's good and they like it. They want you to go on doing that. But I couldn't go on being a child because I was growing up. So I was going to disappoint them because I was turning into this plump girl with bosoms and spots on her face, So I knew that I was going to disappoint them. And so it's just the convoluted twistedness of adolescence that got the better of me. But it's good to question. It's good to challenge yourself. And it's agony, but hopefully you come out the other side and you've learned a few things and you've got better at what you do, and that drove me into the theatre. And I love working in the theatre. The theatre is a great it's a great school for actors.
Well, I want to thank you. You've given so much joy to so many people. And whatever angst you were personally going through, we totally enjoyed what you did. And thank you for sharing it in your book.
Thank you, Cindy. And it makes it all absolutely 100% worthwhile. And where are you? Are you in the Alps?
No, this is actually Glacier National Park. I took this picture about 10 days ago. Right now, I'm just over the border into Utah.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
You're a photographer.
No, I'm not. It's just a stunning place. You can't hardly take a bad picture.
Yes, it really is. Yes.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Sure.
Oh, I just want to say that, everybody, and we've been talking about The Parent Trap because that was such an unbelievable movie, but I saw you in The Family Way. And I thought, that there was a seamless transition between being a child actress and an adult actress. It was, there are a lot of other child actors that don't make that transition very well. But I felt I thought you were brilliant in that movie, and I loved it.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a really good part. It was a great part for me at that particular time in my life. It was my first kind of grown-up part, really. It was, yeah. And I had to show my bottom.
And now we go to the last question. I'll give it to my daughter.
Hi. My name's Megan. First off, I just wanted to say it's been wonderful actually meet you, be it not in person, but still does count. I just wanted to say it's more of a comment rather than a question, but what an outreach, not to circle back to The Parent Trap, because you've been in many other wonderful movies, but what just an outreach that movie has had. Like, I'm 23, my best friend's turning 24 tomorrow, and that's one of her favorite, I miss home, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I just got back from Texas, so happy to be with my parents. But it's just such a nice movie to watch whenever I'm feeling homesick, et cetera, because that was like my chosen movie as a child that I would just watch and watch and watch and watch and watch on end every day, all day.
Wow. And why? Why did you?
I just loved it. That too. And at the time, my best friend, we looked super similar. So we would pretend that we were twins. And I actually did get yelled at by a teacher for something she did once. But yeah, it's just one of my favorite movies, and a lot of like the specifics on my song. I believe Tim mentioned it earlier, the "Let's Get Together." Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like that song is going to be in my wedding whenever that does happen. Like, yeah.
That's great. How sweet. Well, it's wonderful to hear that. It's wonderful. And the story is about children being empowered, isn't it? And children sorting out the mess that their parents have made and making it all, just showing how smart and in touch kids really are. And yeah, it's good. It's good. It's based on, solid ground, the story, actually. That's sweet. Thank you for that.
And with that, I want to thank everybody for a wonderful 90 minutes of the Luncheon Society. This was a lot of fun. All sorts of fun stuff coming up very soon. Keep a watch on your in your email. There'll be a lot of film-related Luncheon Societies coming up next year. That's one thing that's one promise I'm making, because that's why in the olden days before the pandemic, that's why we started going down in Los Angeles. So Hayley, if we can hold off for a minute before you take off, because I want to just tell you what I'll reach out to Sid Ganis and see what we can do about your Academy Award. And with everybody else, thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure meeting you and talking to you all.
Bye. Thank you all. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, are you still okay? Hayley, here's what.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm still sorry that you don't get residuals from that Disney thing, of which is, that was the only thing. I didn't want to bother everybody, because I was going to be a downer to this lovely thing. I'm going, isn't that outrageous that you're not getting, thing? And what about that? And why are you
producer?
Fuck the Oscar, get her a residual. So,
Thank you.
That's, so anyways, it was fabulous. And if you have something, well, I know you know Sid, so.
That's okay, yeah. So
Thanks, Judy.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
So what I'll do is I'll reach out to Sid Ganis today. You can pass your email through Stacy Burt, and I can get back to you directly. And
yes,
the rules as I understand it now. Oh gosh, what was his name? It was Schneider. He won the Academy Award for Hearts and Minds. What happened is after he lost the Academy Award in a fire, but the challenge was he had already died. So the rule of the Academy was they would not replace an Academy Award for somebody who's passed on. You are very much among the living. Now, I don't know what the story is for the Juvenile Academy Awards, but what I can do is I'll reach out to I'll reach out to Sid today, and he'll point me in the right direction, as we try to do for the Schneider's Herald, and we'll go from there. How's that?
All right, this is fantastic. Well, wonderful. Thank you very much. And who knows what'll happen?
Well, let's see if we can work it out.
All right.
Hayley, have a great day.
Hayley, what's that symbol behind you on the door?
Oh, my son Crispian did that, and I'm ashamed to say I don't know.
All right. Means maybe enter. Maybe, who knows?
Yes.
Well, guys, thank you very much.
I don't know.
Okay, and Hayley, we'll be in touch.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Bob. It's been a real pleasure.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.